welcome back to my channel. I feel like I've not filmed in so long, which is probably true. So, hi, my name is Dana. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not, welcome. This channel is all about SMS beauty, which is skincare, makeup, sunscreen. Ta-da! Today, we're doing sunscreen, and this is kind of what I'm gonna have to do for the time being because there are so many sunscreen launches that I just can't get around to doing like a single video for each one. So today I have 3 new sunscreens. They're kind of a mishmash. I was hoping to do just like all chemical or all mineral, and I just didn't, have that chance because I think some of them are, I don't know, maybe people want to hear about them, so I'd rather get it out at once. So that's what we're doing today. Of course, everything will be listed in the description, excuse me. And if you have any questions, of course, let me know. Let's get into the video. All right, so we have 3 sunscreens. I'll go ahead and just tell you what they are. This is the Belif True Cream Aqua Bomb sunscreen. This is a chemical sunscreen or organic. People call them either one. And then we have the First Aid Beauty, the mineral sunscreen, Zinc Oxide. It doesn't have a fancy name. And then the last one, which nobody's been asking about, but I figured I would try, is the Badescu mineral sunscreen. I don't think I've ever tried any Badescu products because they feel so old-fashioned. Like, you know what I'm talking about. So I didn't know what to expect when I got this, but we're gonna try it out. And hey, maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised. All right, let's go from kind of heaviest, I think, to lightest. We're gonna start with the First Aid Beauty sunscreen. So this is a whopping 20% zinc oxide, which is the mineral filter, which is pretty cool. It has this same almost component, like the packaging, as the, native sunscreen that I reviewed a while back. I can link that video here. So it's got your pump here. You get 50 milliliters or 1.7 fluid ounces, and it retails for $28, which is actually a pretty decent price, but not the cheapest. The native beauty one, or the native sunscreen one, I think is a little bit cheaper, but this kind of reminds me of that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do half and half because I have 2 mineral sunscreens and then 1 chemical. So I'm gonna do half a quarter teaspoon of each just because I want to show the proper amount. People sometimes will comment in my videos saying, you put too much on when I put the full amount. This is the full amount for half of your face. And I don't know how many times I can tell people, but that's not too much. Like, the reason that it looks like it's a lot is because sometimes it is. And maybe that's not the sunscreen for you if it's that much. So I just want to reiterate, a quarter of a teaspoon is for your neck and face. If I'm doing half my face, a half of that, so 1/8. Anyway, let's zoom in. Let's put it on my face. Okay, so it's got a little bit of a cast, if you could not tell. This is the side width. It's definitely thicker consistency and it's not as fluid, but it also is not super greasy. And that is one of the claims on the website and the bottle, is that it's not supposed to be super greasy mineral sunscreen, which I do really appreciate. I'm gonna tell you that it's not the hardest to rub in, but it's also not the easiest. For me, I could probably wear this in the winter time, but not in the summer if I'm just wearing it alone. I think it works really beautifully under makeup because it will, like if you put on a little bit of a tinted moisturizer or whatever, it will cover that whiteness, depending on your skin tone, of course. But for me, like for a medium, light medium, sometimes medium skin tone, it is gonna have a cast, but that's kind of to be expected from a white mineral sunscreen. So ingredients in here that they kind of call out, we have avocado oil, vitamin E. Those are really not that spectacular, but also the price is only $28. So I don't think you're necessarily paying for like these quality ingredients or like kind of luxury exotic ingredients. You're really just paying for a pretty standard formula, which is there's nothing wrong with that at all. The one thing that like I just don't understand in 2022 that they're still saying, and this is from Sephora product page, 100% mineral SPF 30 that provides easy daily sun protection with a lightweight, not really, but non-greasy, yes, formula that doesn't leave a white cast on any skin tone. Like, excuse me, what? If that was true, like people would be clamoring for this. So I'm not gonna get too much into it. I think it's a totally fine sunscreen. I wasn't gonna pick this up at all because I was just like not impressed by it. And I kind of remain with that same thought. Like, it's just a white mineral sunscreen with 20% zinc oxide. Like, it's not fabulous. But, you know, if you love First Aid Beauty or you want something that is not super greasy, this is a good one. So if you do have more oily skin, this could work. But at the same time, like there are other ones out there gonna have less of a cast. I just don't think it's spectacular. I was gonna say, and I'm gonna insert a clip here. Okay, so this is the First Aid Beauty, this is the Native. They have that same consistency, which is kind of hard to explain, and I should have done one on one hand, but when it gets to this point where you've started rubbing it in, it almost looks a little streaky, and then it'll start to get tacky almost. We just don't have enough surface area on my hand. But let me see if I can show you with there. Kind of, it gets like that, where it's getting soapy almost. And that is usually the cause of the emulsifier. They probably are putting what's called Olivem in it, and you're going to have the same effect on this one. Do you see how it gets like kind of patchy or soapy? Very similar. And so when I first tried the First Aid Beauty one, I was just like, oh yeah, these formulas are almost the same. This one reminds me a lot of, like I mentioned before, the Native sunscreen. It has that same consistency where when you start kind of like rubbing it in, it gets almost like tacky, or like the fluidity, there is more friction to it. It's not a bad thing, it's just not as elegant as some other sunscreens. And I've said this many times recently, I really just like fluid sunscreens where they're almost like liquidy, lightweight. It just goes on easier. So I think the reason that this one is like that is because it is kind of less greasy, and they're trying to basically make it so it's not so greasy and they can't get that like slippy feel to it. It does remain a little tacky on your face, so if you don't like that, that's something to caution against. But I think this one would be a good kind of like all-purpose one under makeup. It would be a great primer, that kind of thing. It's just not spectacular, and I don't know if I'm gonna change my mind on that. So that's the first one we have. Now let's go into this world of Mario Badescu, who knew what in the world, and try it out. This one is a lot more liquidy, so I'm gonna kind of, instead of doing a half like down the side, it's just gonna be half depth-wise, if that makes any sense. And I'm beating a dead horse when I say this, but I always try to go in, it's not always possible, but I try to go in thin, small layers, and that does kind of help with spreadability, especially if it is a white mineral sunscreen. Okay, so you can already see, I'm not finished, but you can already see how much more easily that goes on. And it's really just because it is fluid, like it's gonna fall and drip down your face. So we kind of have the same look, ghostly. This side just goes on a lot more quickly, and in my opinion, like just easier. I like this kind of format where it is easier to apply, but you know, in the end, it just, you kind of get the same thing. So it's not all that different. But let's talk about the actual product now. Okay, Mario Badescu, another mineral sunscreen. This one has 12.025% zinc oxide. So we have 20% in the First Aid Beauty and 12% and change in Mario Badescu. The ingredient list is really uninspiring, not in a bad way. Like, I don't mind boring sunscreen ingredient list just because it's a sunscreen. Like, I don't typically go to my sunscreen for other stuff. I know there's kind of a big kick for putting vitamin C in sunscreens, but I think if you have more sensitive skin, you're looking for just the standard ingredient list in a sunscreen because you just want it to protect yourself. So I think either of these are going to help. This one does feel a little bit more hydrating, but I don't think it's the long-term hydrating that you might be looking for if you're like looking for a mineral sunscreen that has hydrating properties. But it doesn't leave your face super glowy. Like this side of my face is definitely a little bit glowier than this side, but not to the extent of something like the COTS one, where I've reviewed that a few times, where it's just like pow, like so glowy. So I think either are gonna work for all kind of skin types. It really just depends. They're the same price. I forgot to mention that. This is also $28. Same amount, 1.7 fluid ounces or 50 milliliters. They're really, really similar. It's just, I think the main difference is how you prefer kind of the application. Do you prefer more liquid or prefer like a bit more of a cream? Both of them really operate the same. I do find that they both kind of dry down, and not like in a way like a matte way, but as they dry down, they kind of lose their white cast. Now, I still probably wouldn't go out of the house with just this on. I would put some makeup over it, but neither of them are so offensive that I would put them in like my worst category. I just don't know why you would pick these up out of all of the sunscreens these days. Like, to me, it was kind of like you came out with these new sunscreens and you didn't really do anything. Like, you didn't innovate, you didn't change anything up. And that's okay. Maybe people just like, if they love mineral sunscreens and they love the brand, this is what they're gonna pick up. But I'm probably never going to recommend either of these two just because I find them pretty underwhelming. So those are my thoughts. I think they operate just fine. They have no scent, either of them. They could work for sensitive skin, but again, underwhelming. So let's move on to the one I think people will get a little bit more use out of, which is the Belif, the True Cream Aqua Balm Sunscreen. Oh, it rhymes. Okay, I'm gonna go wash this off, then we'll talk about this one. We're back. I washed my face, you know, I did all the things, and now I'm going to put on the Belif Aqua Balm Sunscreen. I also totally bombed and forgot to tell you what the SPF is for these two, but I mean, obviously you can go and figure that out. They're both SPF 30, so, you know, SPF 30 to me is like the standard. Like, I won't go any lower, but obviously there are so many out there that have SPF 30 that like I'm not gonna not use it just because it's SPF 30. I think you shouldn't be scared of SPF 30. Now, if you're gonna be outside, like working in the garden or going to play softball, I don't know why I said softball, but you know what I mean. If you're gonna be outside for extended amounts of time, I would suggest at least like 40 to 50, and that's just because 30 is not gonna be enough unless you're reapplying every 2 hours like they say. So there's nothing wrong with it though. I've had conversations with people lately where they're like, I'm scared of SPF 30, and I don't think there's anything to be scared about. I think it's obviously we want more, but if it just, you know, you can't get that for whatever reason, SPF 30 is okay. Now, all that said, the Belif one is SPF 50, which is very cool. I love to see it. But Belif, the brand, it's a skincare brand. They sell in Sephora. All of these I got in Sephora. And it's a Korean brand originally. I mean, this one is made in the US, but it is originally like a South Korean brand. So that's a little bit about the background. This one retails for $38. The other ones were $28. So we're getting a little bit pricier. But, you know, typically when you do see an SPF with a higher protection number, you do typically tend to have like a higher price range. It goes into the research and development and all the things that cost more to get the SPF 50. So this one has the same amount, 50 milliliters or 1.7 fluid ounces. And as I said at the beginning, this one is a chemical sunscreen. So let's look at the filters in this one. Okay, so we have 9% homosalate and 9% octocrylene. Then we have 4.5% octosalate and 2.7% avobenzone. So again, 100% chemical or organic. So for this one, the claims for it are that it's a 2-in-1. I love to see that. It's supposed to be a SPF 50 with moisturizer. So this one you should not need moisturizer. The others, you know, it kind of depends on your skin type, but this one for sure is gonna be more hydrating, gonna be like nice on the skin, and it's gonna blend in amazingly. So let's look at it. And I am going to be putting this on my entire face, so that means that we put on a full quarter teaspoon. Ta-da! Okay, so this is the final look, and like it says, it is hydrating. It's supposed to be a moisturizer and a sunscreen, so you're gonna see this kind of glowier look than the other two, which I don't mind at all. Okay, time to zoom out and final thoughts on all three. Okay, so out of the three, this one actually has more ingredients that I think it's a little bit more of a fancy formula, so that could be good or bad. There are more extracts in it. There is a little bit of a scent to it. I think the scent is really nice. I can never put my finger on it. It's so mild though, it's really not overpowering. But it is more complex in that sense. These two are really just kind of like your base formulas. They're just not that fancy, which is okay. This one is a perfect moisturizer and sunscreen. Like, I would use this pretty much year round as that. Now, if you have super dry skin, you might still need a moisturizer underneath. But for me, this is gonna be fine, especially under makeup. It's gonna just layer beautifully. It's really, there's not that much to it. It can feel a little greasy if you're maybe more oily or it's super humid. Like, this is not the sunscreen I would wear just like to go outside in the summertime. I would wear this under makeup, kind of knowing that I'm not gonna be sweating and moving around, just because it is going to be a little bit more moisturizing and I might be a little too dewy for my skin type and the weather, but otherwise I find it fabulous. I do get a little cautious around my eyes. It doesn't sting or burn or make them water, but I just, like, over time I do find more sensitivity to chemical sunscreens around my eyes. So if that's you too, maybe test it out. Maybe just don't put it around your eyes. You kind of have to be a little bit more cautious. So that is one thing to consider. It's not bad, but if I get it too close, I can start just having like watery eyes. So that's what it is. I have read other people having like a little bit of the eye sting. So I think if this is something you really want to try out, that's definitely something to consider. I am like super cautious by putting it under and then just a little bit up here. But it is kind of, if you can let it set a little bit, it's not going to necessarily like migrate into your eye. So it definitely, I would caution people, there might be some stinging involved. If that's something that's just a no-go for you, probably pass on it. Out of these three, I would reach for the Belif more, just because for me to use a mineral sunscreen, it definitely needs to be tinted. Or not even tinted, but just like tinted so it doesn't have a white cast. And I have videos on some of my favorite mineral sunscreens. Just check out my channel. There are plenty of options. So I guess final thoughts on all three of these. I don't think anyone in particular is like spectacular. I think these, like I said, the mineral sunscreens are pretty standard, pretty run of the mill. I would not recommend them over so many others. Even if I'm like recommending a non-tinted mineral sunscreen, I would probably recommend the Murad one over that, or over these two. And then in terms of the Belif one, I think the eye sting, or like, it doesn't sting, it just like doesn't feel wonderful, and I am very cautious with it. But to me, it really reminds me of, and I have it right here, the Misha Aqua reformulation, where Korean sunscreens went from like these really fluid, beautiful formulations to that, which I'm going to be doing a video on, like the old and the new, where they're creamier, they're a little bit richer, they don't really dry down, like you're always going to have this kind of tacky feel to it. And a lot of the reason is because they've kind of done away with putting alcohol in them, because a lot of people were like, oh my god, alcohol, it's going to dry my skin. Not true. So they're reacting to customers, but the customers are kind of not necessarily 100% right. And this formula really reminds me of those reformulations. And that's just my own opinion. Now, do I think it's bad? Not at all. Like, I think it's really nice. I think it's moisturizing. I don't think it's gonna like replace your moisturizer if you have drier skin. But if you have more normal or oily skin, this could be a really nice sunscreen option. So, kind of a bust. No, not a bust. But, you know, I had, what was it? I had trying like the testing or Ulta Sephora haul where like everything I got was spectacular. And you know, this happens too, where you buy them and you're kind of like, not excited to put them on. I'm not excited to put any of these on. So it is what it is. Nothing wrong with them though. So let me know if you have any questions, if you have any comments. I mean, you will let me know if you have comments. No one's ever shy about that. Yeah, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.